So hi guys, today in our video we are going to learn about chess and most of the different pieces of chess and how do they move in a game of chess. So this chess is popularly known as Shatranj in Hindi. So it actually consists of 16 pieces with 8 by 8 grid. Okay, so the main aim or the main game of the chess is to save the king. So this piece is actually the king piece. So if anyone checks or checkmates the king, then the game ends and you lose, or either the opponent will lose. Okay, so it's based on which king is checked. So this is the white king and this is the black king. Okay, now we will see that the first line of defense is the pawn. So there are 8 pawns, you can see clearly, available at both ends, and the pawn has 2 ways to move. So in the beginning you can decide whether the pawn can move 1 step or 2 steps. Okay, so this is the main advantage of the pawn, that it can move 2 steps, but it can do only it once and only at the beginning. So you cannot move your pawn in the first step like this, and then if any black moves 2 steps, okay, next you cannot move your pawn 2 steps. Okay, once you move the pawn once, then you have to, the pawn can move only in single steps. Only at the beginning the pawn can move 2 steps. Okay, so those are the movements of the pawns. So the next one is actually, it is also popularly known as rook or elephant. Okay, so what is the movement of the elephant is, so I'll just remove this pawn. Okay, if suppose the elephant is actually free to move in horizontal as well as vertical manner, how many ever grids it wants. Suppose if this is the thing that is present, then the rook can move and hit the pawn. Okay, so basically the rook can move in straight direction, that is either it can move in horizontal straight direction or vertical straight direction. So this is how a rook can move, rook or an elephant. So the next piece is the knight or the horse. Okay, so the horse can actually move in L shapes. So it can move like this, it can move like this and stay here, or it can move like this and stay here. If an horse is actually here, and if you want to move after the black piece moves, then what you have to do is the horse can move like this with another L, or it can move like this, or it can move like this, or it can move like this. So once the horse is out, okay, so you can move the horse any way you want, but only in L shapes. Okay, so that is how a horse or a knight can move. So the third one is the bishop. So the bishop actually has a horizontal or a diagonal movement. So if suppose the bishop is in this position, it can only move in this direction or in this direction. So it cannot move front, or it cannot move in the sideways. It can move how many ever grids it want, but it can move only in diagonal direction. So a bishop can move 1 step, or a bishop can move 2 step, or a bishop can move 3 step in one attempt, but it can go only in diagonal direction. It cannot go forward, reverse. Okay, it can come backwards also, but that backward movement will also be in diagonal direction. Okay, so that is all about the bishop. Next is the king. Actually the king can move only 1 step in all the directions. Okay, so it can move either sideways, or it can move front, it can move back, or it can move diagonally, but it can take only 1 step. Okay, so it has to go, if the king is actually in this grid, so the possible movements of the king are front, back, sideways, or in the diagonal grids. Okay, so this is the king and these are all its possible movements. So I forgot to tell you one more thing, that when a pawn moves front, it cannot actually come back, it has to always go in front. So that is the disadvantage of a pawn. Whereas the rook, the knight, the bishop, all the pieces which are the back can actually go front and back, except the pawn. The pawn can move only in front direction and it cannot move in the back direction. Okay, next is the queen. So actually this is the queen, and the queen is the most, like, my most favorite and most powerful chess piece ever. So the queen can move however it want to. Okay, so it can move forward, it can move backward, it can move sideways, it can move diagonally. Okay, so basically a queen can move how a king can move. That is, a king can move only one step, but a queen can move how many ever steps it wants to take. So if suppose if the queen is actually like this, okay, if the opponent queen, so let me take it with the opponent queen. If actually an opponent queen is like this, then the king can only cut the queen if the queen is one grid near to the king. But if the opponent is like this, then the king will not be able to jump twice and cut the queen, but the queen can come and cut the king. Okay, so a queen can move in all direction, that is all the diagonal direction, front and back, and also in the sideways, in how many steps and how many ever steps it wants to take. Okay, so that is how a king and a queen will move. And similarly, this side also we have a bishop, a knight and a rook. So this side actually it is a symmetrical grid except the king and queen. Okay, so here we have a bishop, a knight, a rook. Similarly here we have a bishop, a knight, a rook, and in between we actually have a queen and a king. So the queen, actually a white queen must be placed in the white grid. Similarly, you can see that the black queen will be placed in the black grid. Okay, so this is the basics of chess. I hope you understood everything, and I hope if you have a chess board, you will play with your friends and families. Thank you everyone.